What is going on, YouTube? It is Mekabre back with yet another Destiny 2 video. In today's video, we are going to be discussing the three new weapons that are dropping from Nightfalls. Yes, Nightfall exclusives. For those of you who don't know, there are three weapons from Destiny 1 that are making their Destiny 2 appearances in the Nightfall. So those three weapons include the Shadow Price Auto Rifle, the Heavy Machine Gun, the Swarm, and the 140 Energy Slot Palindrome. Why are we excited? Well, all three of these weapons in D1 were kind of cracked, and we're seeing whether or not they're cracked in D2. And here's the deal. I'm recording this on reset, okay? Before reset, matter of fact, of the first week of of season 13, okay? So the only weapon I have my hands on that I've actually used is Shadow Price. That it was the first week of the season dropping from Nightfalls. This upcoming week, we don't know. It'll either be the Swarm or it'll either be the Palindrome. So keep your eye out for that, all right? But let's talk first about how we acquire these weapons. So, like I said, they are Nightfall exclusives, but what do I mean when I say Nightfall exclusives? In order to get these weapons, you must run the Nightfall. Duh, obviously. But here's how you can increase your chances of getting said weapons. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you grind your light level as high as possible. Okay? Inside each season, obviously, these weapons may change season to season, and even if they don't change season to season, we will see that being a higher light level will allow you to have greater odds at having these drop for you. Okay? The first way to increase your odds is simply by doing higher level nightfalls. So the higher the light level of the nightfall, the more likely these weapons are to drop at the end of it. So the greater the difficulty, the greater the chances of a drop. If you're running that 1230 over and over and over and over, your chances are really, really small. And while, yeah, you can grind through a lot of them, it's not all that productive. Instead, let's say you're 1298, you're close to 1300, but two of your buddies are over 1300, hop into the 1300 Nightfall, and the chances of having a Shadow Price, or the Swarm or Palindrome, whatever week you're on, dropping is way, way likelier, okay? Now, this is great and all, and you might be saying, well, hey, I don't have people to grind with. I'm the only one that plays this game out of my friend group. How the heck am I supposed to get this weapon if I can't do 1300? Because 1300 doesn't match me. I'm glad you asked. Do the 1270. 1270 is the highest you can go currently without matchmaking, okay? Or with matchmaking, sorry. And here's the thing, the difficulty of the Nightfall isn't the only thing that affects the drop rate of these weapons. Yes, you heard me correct. There's another thing that affects the drop rate of these weapons. That second thing is the medal you receive based on the amount of champions you kill inside the strike, okay? In each Nightfall, there's a set amount of champions. Some continuously spawn until you move on to the next area, and others are just one time, kill them, they're dead, they don't come back. Well, kill every single champion that you see in the Nightfall before they despawn, obviously, and you'll be rewarded with a platinum medal at the end. Kill most of them, you'll get a gold. Kill a few of them, but not all of them, you'll get a silver, so on and so forth. It continues to get worse. The higher the medal you receive, therefore, the more champions that you kill in each Nightfall will increase your chances of dropping the weapon. Okay, so for this week, it would be Shadow Price. So for those of you who don't have people to do this with, and you only can run the 1270 because you need people to matchmake with you, don't worry. Just make sure that at the bare minimum, you're killing every single champion, even if your teammates aren't. This will increase your likelihood. Now, that's great and all, but you might be asking, well, sure, I kind of knew how to farm these, and honestly, it doesn't matter to me. I'll still run 1230s until I get it. That's fine. But why should I be trying to get these weapons? Like, what's so good about them? Well, here's the deal. A lot of this hype is from nostalgia. People are thinking back to D1 times. They're like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Are they truly cracked? And here's what I'm here to tell you is some of these weapons truly are cracked. And I'll get into why starting right now. Let's start with the Shadow Price Auto Rifle. It is a 450 rounds per minute, and here are the stats on screen. This is the base form. Keep in mind, all three of these weapons do have an adept form. We'll get to that later. Let's jump into the perks that we can get. The perk pool for these weapons are relatively small, making farming for that god roll or the specific roll that you would like a lot easier. Okay, you have your selection of barrel and magazine perks. For shadow price, you're going to want something that either increases range and slash or stability. Both of those are things that heavily play into this auto rifle. It, like I said, is a 450, so it shoots a little bit slower, but it makes up for it with that damage. Okay, let's move into the first perk column, and we have perks such as Bottomless Grief, which is a new one. We'll come back to it. Surplus, Killing Wind, fourth time's the charm, Feeding Frenzy, and Overflow. Pretty solid choices all around. Now let's move into the second column. We have One for All, Disruption Break, Thrash, Swashbuckler, Unrelenting, and Firefly. Once again, some solid choices and some less than solid choices. So, what am I looking for in terms of god rolls? Well, quite simply put, here's my PvE god roll. The first thing that I'm going to want is either Overflow or Feeding Frenzy. Feeding Frenzy giving me an increased reload speed, whereas Overflow doubles my magazine whenever I run over a special or heavy block. Okay. But if I'm not feeling up to either of those weapons, the new perk, Bottomless Grief, actually might be pretty decent inside of a few activities. In strikes where both of your teammates are dead, once they're dead and you're the last guardian standing, Bottomless Grief will instantly refill your magazine for every single kill that you get while both of your teammates are dead, so while you're last guardian standing. So some pretty solid choices. Those are the three that I would choose for PvE activities, still leaning more towards the overflow side of things just because of how awesome overflow truly is. Now, jumping into the second column, there is only three options I would even remotely consider. Obviously, your one for all is going to be your best choice. Hit three different targets, and you have 10 seconds of a 35% damage increase. But if you're not feeling up for one for all, there is Thresh and Swashbuckler. Swashbuckler increasing your damage, and obviously, you can get that 1 through 5 stacks, and you can get an instant 5 stack if you get a melee kill. Thresh, however, giving you super energy and can be paired with the new Warlock chest piece, which can allow you to get Chaos Reach kind of fast, may I add. Now, in terms of PvE, is there any use of this? Not right now. 450 auto rifles in general, aren't seeing a ton of playtime in the Crucible because hand cannons, pulse rifles, and scouts are truly the meta. You're not seeing a whole lot of anything else unless people are just screwing around or truly have a favorite weapon. But I have seen some people make this weapon work. So what would you want for a PvP god roll? Well, quite simply put, I would want Bottomless Grief if I'm going to be playing a lot of trials and or elimination or comp. Anything where I am the last guardian standing, possibly. This will allow me to get a kill and instantly refill my magazine, which would be very nice. Past that, I truly only see Killing Wind as the other option that would make any sense on this. 450s don't have fantastic range necessarily, so getting a kill and increasing the range on this would be kind of nice. In the second perk column, well, I don't have a bunch of great PvP options here. Obviously, Thresh would be nice to have super back, but it can be kind of inconsistent, and depending on the game mode that you're playing, not necessarily worth it. Swashbuckler is what I would personally go with, seeing as how that's the easiest to actually acquire and allow you to get a damage buff. Now we're going to move on to the Swarm. The Swarm is a heavy machine gun that is 360 RPM, okay? So it's very similar to the Seven Seraph Saw. Once again, you have your selection of barrel perks and you have a selection of magazine perks, but what are you going to farm for? Good question. Let's move into the first perk column. We have Killing Wind, Outlaw, once again that Bottomless Grief, Dynamic Sway Reduction, and Surplus. In the second perk column, we have Zen Moment, Slideways, Tap the Trigger, One for All, Firefly, and Vorpal. Pretty solid options here, and this one, like I said, is a lot. There's not a lot of perks to choose from, so farming that god roll should be a little bit easier on you. So what am I going for? In terms of my PvP god roll in the Crucible, well, I'm only feeling two things here, and it depends on whether or not you have a lot of ammo from the block that you pick up, or, if you're actually getting heavy, not killing the man who had it and then taking his. Well, I would say killing one's nice if you have enough bullets to get multiple kills. Increasing that range, pretty solid. But I feel like more often than not, you're not going to have a bunch of bullets, so I would go with dynamic sway reduction to decrease or increase the stability and honestly just make shooting this gun so much smoother. In terms of second perk column, well, tap the trigger is another solid choice if you're going to be using this in PvP. However, the only other option that I would even come close to considering is Vorpal Weapon, only if I know that there's going to be another super in play and I just don't feel like using a primary or a special to take care of the super, so instead I'm going to put on a Vorpal Weapon on this machine gun and use it instead. It can be pretty solid. Now, what am I going to go for in PvE, you might ask? Well, here, I'm going to tell you right now. Get a roll with literally any of those perks and Vorpal Weapon and put it in your vault. Just in case one day machine guns become the meta in terms of PvE activities, in terms of damage, okay? DPS. If that day comes, then you have a solid machine gun with Vorpal Weapon on it. If you don't, however, I would say definitely aim for Bottomless Grief or Dynamic Sway Reduction, possibly Outlaw if you're considering this to be your main ad clearing weapon. In the second perk column, once again, tap the trigger will be a solid choice. However, one for all will be a close second, if not a first, due to that 35% damage bonus. That is the Swarm. Moving on to the third and the final weapon, the Palindrome. The Palindrome is an energy 140 hand cannon. Yes, that's right. You once again have your selection of barrel and magazine perks. Choose as you see fit. For this, I would highly recommend range, possibly stability, but range is a heavy focus for 140s. All right, now let's move on to the first perk column. We have Substance, Quick Draw, Overflow, Killing Wind, Bottomless Grief, and Outlaw. In the second perk column, we have One for All, Thresh, Unrelenting, Rampage, Rangefinder, and High Impact Reserves. What is the PvE god roll that I'm going to be looking for? Well, seeing as how 140s aren't in the best spot in either PvE or PvP, it's going to be a little difficult to tell, but I would definitely choose either Overflow, Bottomless Grief. Those are probably the two PvE that I'm going to be looking for. Overflow increasing the magazine size from 10 to 20 when I run over a brick of special or heavy, and obviously Bottomless Grief, like we talked about, overall just pretty solid. In the second perk column, One for All is definitely going to be a solid choice. In this case, I'm going to ignore using Thresh and instead focus on either High Impact Reserves or use Rampage. These are going to allow you to get more damage with the weapon and honestly make it feel a little more crisp. Hopefully, we'll see. I'm not entirely sure. In terms of a PvP god roll, either Overflow or Killing Wind are probably going to be your two options. Once again, Bottomless Grief if you intend on using this in game modes in the Crucible where you'll be the last Guardian standing. Killing Wind, though, is probably your best bet, increasing the range after getting a kill. In terms of the right perk column, what am I looking for? Well, any of the bottom three: Rampage, Rangefinder, or High Impact. High Impact and Rangefinder increasing your damage with certain ways, whether it's getting a kill or just getting the magazine down to the last couple bullets. But Rangefinder honestly might be your best bet, seeing as how it's going to increase your range constantly. So there you have it. There are all the perks for all the new weapons and the god rolls that I'm farming for. But wait, there's more. Yes, that's right. Each of these weapons has an adept version. How do you get the adept version? Grand Master Nightfall. That's the only way you can get it. And no, it is not out yet. So we do not have our hands on any of these weapons. I do not have my hands on an adept Shadow Price because it wasn't out the first week. So, complete the Grandmaster Nightfall, and you have the chance at getting an adept version of the weapon that it is that week. Okay, now where this is the catch? Obviously, these drop rates are going to be a lot lower. Okay, so you actually have to run it possibly multiple times in order to get it. Can that be annoying? Yes. And are you going to have to find a group of people to do it with? Yes. I highly encourage using the LFG app, seeing as how there are plenty of people on there that do Grandmaster Nightfalls with random people. Sometimes you might have to have a mic, sometimes you don't, but do it and see if you can't get an adept version. We think that it's also going to drop adept mods, which is a way for PvE players to get these mods instead of going into trials to get the mods. Pretty solid choice if you ask me. I will throw up the changes to each of the weapons on screen, and you can look at them in their adept forms, just the stats, and see whether or not you think it's worth going after or whether it's not. Keep in mind, each of these adept weapons will have an adept mod slot that allows you to slot an adept mod, some of which include adept Icarus. So for the palindrome, maybe it'll see some crucible playtime, and others, adept range or adept stability, stuff like that. So keep an eye out for that, and I would definitely try and complete a couple of Grandmaster Nightfalls just to see if you can't get your hands on an in-depth version of this gun. Well, these guns. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, a like rating or a comment, a subscription down below, any of the above would be greatly appreciated. I'm still sitting at that like 60-40. 60 of y'all are subscribed to my channel that watch my content. The other 40 of you are not. Why are you guys not subscribed? It doesn't take that much work. Go down and subscribe down below, please. And thank you. New uploads every Tuesday and Saturday with a podcast twice a month. Keep your eye out for it. And also keep your eye out. We're streaming, boys. Yes, that's correct. This Friday evening, if I can get everything set up in time, we'll be streaming here on YouTube live at probably around 7:30 EST. So keep your eye out for that, as I will be playing some Destiny 2. With that, that is the end of this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed, and get back to grinding, you crazy guardians.